When you've been using the MAST process for a while, you may think you can improve it. Maybe some of the steps are not necessary and you can just skip them. Or maybe you can combine some of the steps to make the process faster. Why is it important that you do all of the 8 steps separately? It's important to know that MAST was developed in accordance with educational and psychological theories about the brain and how we learn. Each step in the MAST process is designed to work with the other 7 steps to produce the most accurate and natural translation in the least amount of time. What if you skip the consume step? You may not think it's necessary for a person to consume the entire passage before beginning to translate. What happens if you skip the consume step? Can you think of some negative consequences? Let's take a look at 4 results of skipping the consume step. If translators don't consume the entire passage, they won't understand the broader concepts. They will get bogged down in details without knowing the point of the passage. What is it actually saying? The translation will be choppy because each verse is translated separately without regard to its context. The translation will be word-based, not meaning-based. Without context, the translation process will take longer. Now you can see that the consume step is necessary, but what about verbalize? Do translators really need to retell the passage to someone else before beginning to translate? Remember that verbalizing is done in the heart language, so it is the first mental step the translator makes to transfer the message from one language to another. This bolsters confidence when the actual translating begins. What do you think would be missing if translators skipped the verbalize step? Translators would not be able to confirm their understanding of the passage. This would lead to guessing about the meaning and content. Translators would have less confidence in their ability to write the passage in their heart language. Therefore, verbalizing is a necessary step. But do translators really need to break up the passage into chunks? What would happen if they skipped the chunk step? Chunking is a vital step before blind drafting. Can you think of at least a couple of reasons? If translators don't chunk, or if they specify too large of a chunk, there is often too much information to translate. It's too hard to remember everything when they close the source text and translate without looking. If they divide the passage into chunks that are too small, the translation will be choppy because there's no connection between the chunks, which contain only part of a complete thought. Dividing the passage into chunks of the proper size is a necessary prelude to blind drafting. All right, but why do blind drafting? What happens if translators look at the source text as they are translating? Translation goes more slowly as translators look at each word rather than just translating the message in their own words. The translation will be word-based rather than meaning-based. The translated text will be choppy rather than smooth. The translation will not sound natural. The chunk and blind draft steps work together to produce a natural-sounding translation. What about the checking steps? Would it be more efficient to combine some of the steps? It may be tempting to even skip steps altogether if they seem too repetitive. What do you think might happen if you skip some of the checking steps? The self-edit step gives translators confidence to quickly write the draft without regard for errors. If you skip the self-edit, translators will be so afraid of making mistakes that they won't do the blind drafting freely and naturally. If you skip the peer edit, you won't have the benefit of another pair of eyes looking over the entire draft before concentrating on more of the details. If you skip the keyword check, there is a danger that some of the important details will be missing or not translated consistently. Skipping the verse-by-verse check could mean that the translation does not accurately represent the meaning of the source text. But some of these steps seem redundant. Couldn't they be combined? The checking steps are layered to achieve the most accurate translation. You shouldn't combine the steps because the brain can pay attention to only a small amount of information at once. The steps go more smoothly when done one at a time. Checking actually goes more slowly when the steps are combined. Teamwork is essential. Different people notice different things. The checking steps are all essential to produce the most accurate translation. In summary, there are several negative consequences in skipping or combining the steps of the masked process. The 4 drafting steps work together to produce the most natural translation, while all 4 of the checking steps are necessary to ensure clarity and accuracy. Thanks for watching.